So Dave, you were just saying that you were listening to Pod Save America, yeah?
Yeah, I don't. I certainly stopped after the election because I didn't want to hear a bunch of libs spiking a football. But I listen to it on occasion. I know you do too a little bit, Skylar.
Don't bring me into this, man. That's
Oh,
like
You're riding this
we're
boat
throwing
alone.
me fully under the bus. Huh?
No. All right, I'll stand with you. I do listen to it sometimes. Sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I want to hear like what the Whack Takes crew has to say about shit, you know.
And they have insider perspective and analysis. And if nothing else, it's really good to know what those people are thinking and where they're coming from. Literally, the main guy is like best friends with Biden's press secretary. They had her on at the end of the episode today. So if that tells you anything about the hard-hitting reporting we're going to be getting from them in the next 4 years, it's fantastic. But it's been so long since I listened to it last, and I was immediately struck by their absolutely tacky, horrible ads.
Yeah, they like that's why for like a while when we were like, we won't really do this anymore when we're doing the Patreon ask, but it was always like we want to be ad free, and like that is the show that I always think of. It's like, oh, like what a lame way to do a podcast.
Oh my God. Oh,
is this the thing where they like they'll be like, Skylar, I started to, have back pain, and so I drank this tea that's made of cucumbers and lemons and rose hips, and my back pain just went away. Like, it's like conversational ads.
Sort of, but then they also will just like read the copy that gets sent to them by whatever company it is that they're doing the ads for, right? So it'll be like, and a lot of it is like those like, subscription clothing services that like nobody except wealthy people
or like
can actually
meal prep
to do,
shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then they like, so someone will read the copy and then they act like it's funny to them that
and
they're reading
so
the copy.
not funny.
So Kempa, what did you subscribe to because of their ads?
Did you use Pod Save in the discount bubble?
But the way that it starts, like, it's always like at the very beginning, they just tell you straight up what the episode's brought to you by. So it's like, today's episode of Voices River City is brought to you by taints. It taint your beehole and it taint your other side. Taints. And then you go on about it for a while and about how much you like
your beehole.
Yeah.
Your taint is the space between your beehole and your pee hole, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
I just want to make sure I understand anatomy.
This is why it needs advertising, because not everybody, there's not enough awareness on the taint.
Yeah, I was not aware of this. Like, no, this is good for me to know. Can we
something new every day?
Let's do the show.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
It's not brought to you by anything.
Taints.
Voices, the things they said. Voices, some from those dead. All the voices heard. Voices, things we say. Voices, they're in your head. All the voices heard.
Hello, Sacramento and California. And everyone else. You have Kempa.
And you have Skylar.
And you have Shannon.
And there is no Dr. Flo today.
No, Dr. Flo is doing her superhero thing on the Measure U committee tonight. So
yeah, we can never be mad at her when she takes Mondays off for that. She is basically, as we know, running a committee, a public oversight committee on where a citywide tax dollars are going, as they should have been going to particular help, underserved communities and things like that. Anyway, she runs that committee over at City Hall.
And apparently feels like it's like some big important deal that she has to skip doing the podcast to do every now and then. So
yeah. I mean, I contain multitudes. I can be excited for her to do that, and also angry. that
Right.
she's not
Very
here.
resentful.
100%.
Very resentful.
I need some
Yeah.
time to unpack these conflicting emotions. I think.
I don't know if we can do the show tonight.
Yeah.
Let's just
so-
change the subject.
Oh yeah, sure.
Oh, that's the best way to do this. Yeah, that's right.
Today is a really fun show, in my opinion.
We haven't done it yet.
I know, but the topics we're doing are phenomenal. First of all, I wanted to talk about a young up-and-comer here in the Sacramento Republican Party.
You can't be talking about Jeffrey Eric Perrine.
The same.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I think congratulations are in order. Our Mr. Perrine won an election and a seat on the Sac County Republican Party Central Committee. So moving on up, he's like a 37-year-old guy out of Citrus Heights, and and this is a guy, honestly. It's already in the name of the organization, but I really feel like Perrine puts the proud and Proud Boy.
Absolutely.
He's extremely proud to be a Proud Boy.
This is a classic grassroots organizing success story. He organizes with really one of the most famous white supremacist groups in the country at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great. So this is a guy. He's like some. Oh man! All right, I'm working on it. I almost swore, but then I didn't.
He's not a good person.
He's a bad,
like him.
real bad guy.
A naughty boy.
He's a naughty boy.
He is a real bad.
He got he was elected to this position, and there's like all kinds. And he's like I think he's like a fairly prominent Proud Boy scumbag. He's famous for being on a video at an event in Portland in 2018, speaking through a megaphone, suggesting that, quote, all the illegals trying to jump over our border, we should be smashing their heads into the concrete.
What the hell?
So when he was questioned about that, his quote is, when I say in 2018 smashing an illegal immigrant's head, what is racist about that? Which I think
this is him responding to the bee asking him this question.
So this article came out today about this guy. It got shared pretty widely around social media and whatnot, and then basically immediately the Republican Central Committee sent him an email and was like, hey, you can either resign or we're gonna vote you out next time we convene. I think that it is fair to assume that if the Bee had not run this piece and had not made this guy like locally famous today,
Right.
that this email would not have been sent, and that this guy would still have his seat on this committee, and that the people who work with him would work with him knowing who he is and what he has done.
There's no question in my mind that that's what would happen. Didn't the head of the county Republican Party say, like, well, we knew that he had been a Proud Boy, but he said he doesn't do that anymore?
Her initial language was like, we can't vet people based on their affiliations to certain groups and whatnot. Like if he runs an election and wins fair and square, then he's on the committee. Member of
a hate group.
Not a former member. He's an active member.
Well,
she thought he was former at the beginning. That's what I thought I read. I could be wrong. But yeah, I mean, this is as defined by the Southern Poverty Law Center, a hate group. And for her, she's like, well, that's democracy, folks. Sorry.
Right. Until everybody found out about it and got real mad. And then all of a sudden it's like, those are not the values that we would expect one to bring to the Republican Central Committee. It's like, whoa, what values are we expecting you to bring? That's That's basically the values that I would expect you to bring, to be
Right.
100% honest.
Well, our condolences to Mr. Perrine for losing this position. Like Icarus, he has flown too close to the sun.
Yeah, what a wild day for this guy. He like wins an election. He's like riding high,
And then
he gets 2 articles written about him in the same day
In like 8 hours. Right?
well, this I mean,
Yeah.
this is the kind of guy who, right, like in the follow-up B article, they state that the email was sent to him that they're done, and he's like, yeah, I'm not gonna resign.
So he's gonna make
go ahead
them
I'm gonna
vote
go
him
ahead and wait
out.
for them to vote me out. So this guy seems like he's like top notch.
Oh, totally. Did you see he sort of throws a tantrum at the end of this article as well, saying, I'm going to tell all my friends, do not join the Republican Party. I'm never going to be affiliated with them again.
Yeah, he's going to try and push people away from the GOP, which actually is like, could be I mean, I think he has some pull. Like his Twitter account, I was reading, his Twitter account got banned because Roger Stone was pointing people at it and being like, it's like some kind of like weird patriot thing or whatever. But Roger Stone was like trying to push people to follow him on Twitter and whatnot. So I think he actually has some influence amongst the chuds. So if he kind of goes rogue and starts pointing people away from the GOP, if I'm local GOP, I'm taking that kind of seriously, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think this speaks to a larger issue that I wanted to talk about a little bit today. This conundrum of what the Republican Party does now after a Trump presidency. There is a book called Let Them Eat Tweets that came out this year. It's by 2 political scientists named Jacob Hacker and Paul Pearson. And in this book, they're addressing what's called the conservative dilemma. Now, this dilemma is basically that in democratic nations, the most far-right leaning parties that represent the oligarchy, right? The landed capitalists who have the most money out of everybody else, they have to stay in power. So the way that they do that are, one, through minority rule, by using really just fuckery to make sure that even if they don't have all the votes, they can find ways to have all the power in the government. So
like an example of that is like the way that the right in this country uses the Electoral College and the Senate to like have outsized representation, so that even if they don't have majority vote, their voice still counts more than
precisely.
Yeah,
there's
exactly
that. There's gerrymandering, where they can control more seats even if they have fewer voters within a state.
Right.
And of course, just simple voter suppression, right? Racist voter suppression like we see every day in the South. The Republicans have been doing this as a matter of course, as a matter of strategy.
Right.
The other way is because the conundrum here is there are very, very few quote unquote elites, capitalist oligarchs. So they don't have enough votes as all the workers. So what you have to do, viewing this through a socialist lens, is either that, minority rule by the all those little things they were doing, or you spike up concerns of racial animus or culture wars or things like that, and you scapegoat these other people, and you get those lower classes to vote against their interests. Now, as they do this in the United States, more and more, and as they succeed more and more, the lifestyle and the material things that workers have in that country, even the workers that are voting for these bad far-right people, get worse and worse. And until eventually people get so angry that, it goes in one of 2 directions, right? And in order for them to maintain a hold on those voters, their rhetoric has to get more and more intense, or else those voters will wake up from that fever dream eventually. So sort of Trumpism and Q stuff, like this is the logical end to a far right party siphoning more and more resources from the lower classes. All of this is to say we're at that point now where either that party has to continue to do that, or that party, like the Tories in Great Britain during certain eras, has to get more moderate. And they will, the question is, will the Republicans here in the state or in the US get more moderate like the Tories back in the day? Or will they get further down the Trump hole, right?
Right.
And to me, I mean, looking at the state California party, there's no reason that this Perrine guy shouldn't be running the Sacramento County Republicans. This is their party.
Right.
They are
Yeah.
the party of white supremacy.
Right.
There's no reason. If you look at Shannon Grove, who was the head of GOP leadership in our state, she's a senator. She believes, or at least says it all the time, that this election was stolen from Donald Trump. They believe this.
Right.
Yeah.
Jessica Milan Peterson, who's the head of the state GOP, she spouts the same madness. So to me, it's like that's kind of the direction I see that party going, and I guess I'm not surprised by any of it anymore.
And it'll be interesting to see, like, because I think that there are like there's famous people on the national scale, like a Mitt Romney, or like what's the other guy's name? I always get this guy confused with Joe Manchin, even though Joe Manchin is like the reverse mirror image of this guy. Flake, that's who I'm thinking.
Jeff
of.
Flake in Arizona,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Who stepped down, right? I mean, he didn't want to be a senator anymore because of his party
Right.
turning into what it is today.
Right, but there are some of these folks who are sort of like towing the like quote unquote moderate Republican line, but it doesn't seem like they have as much juice as the Trump people. I feel like the Trump folks are still kind of calling the shots, and for sure, like if Trump is able to convince like even any kind of a significant percentage of his voters not to vote for Republicans, like they're in trouble. Like it's not, I don't see like a viable party. Like that's like Trump excites that base. And if he is able to like dissuade that base from, if he's able to turn that base away from the GOP, I don't know. I mean, they're really, it looks like they're kind of reaping what they've been sowing, right? Like it's there's like a bit of Schadenfreude in watching this happen, because it's like, yeah, like you guys built a Frankenstein's monster here, and now it's out of control, and you guys are probably hosed, you know? I mean, most certainly, obviously, in a state like California, we talk all the time about how, you know, the GOP is basically irrelevant here.
Right. And that's the conundrum at this point. The California GOP is 24.2% of registered voters. That's it. Under a quarter. There are almost as many no party preference voters, 24%, as there are GOP voters. There are, meanwhile, 46.1% of the registered voters in the state are Democrats. So the conundrum is, how do they build out their base? Well, they could reach out to workers and try and find ways to improve their lives. But the problem is they would never fucking do that, right?
Right.
They would never do that, because that's entirely against what Republicans are about. They want to deregulate. They don't want you to have a minimum wage. Everything they want will hurt the worker. So their only other answer is this racial animus and, you know, hatred and fear.
Well, and the other thing that I think is like worth stating here is the other thing that the GOP can and does do all the time is they point to the Democrats and are like, these are the guys you want. Look at how corrupt and lame the Democrats are. And this is actually a successful strategy because the Democrats are corrupt and lame, which is, you know, like we yell about Democrats on the show all the time. And this kind of gets to the crux of why, because it's like, if you guys would just like be the party that you say that you are, then the Republicans wouldn't be able to correctly identify you as charlatans all the time, and their base wouldn't go along with it.
Yes, I agree. That's actually what Jessica Patterson of the state GOP, the chair, is that's her strategy. I don't think it works as well without a message for what we want to do. So,
Right.
Trump is like, we want to stop, immigrants, right? His xenophobia really launched him into the White House. And their answer for a yes, a positive, what our answer is to the Democrats, because we all agree. I mean, when Jessica Patterson says Gavin Newsom is a liar and he tells us to do one thing while he goes and does another thing, like, hey, stay at home, and then I'm going to go to French Laundry for a dinner. We agree.
And then I'll just not to get off the point, but then, now I'll just let's open up Sac County. Screw it. Let's open up the whole state.
Right.
Isn't LA, is it like a 0% ICU capacity? I don't know. There's a whole other thing. And I would rather have Flo here to talk about that, but that's blowing my mind today. Anyway, back to Newsom and you're also not going to get any argument out of me that Newsom is pretty whack.
To your point, she's right, but they're missing the other side of it. So you're right about that too. And I don't think that the state GOP can ever catch a foothold because they're follow us for this positive reason. It either will never appeal to young Californians, young diverse Californians, or if they do start to try to appeal to them with things that they'll like, the rabid, racist Trump base will leave. They will not go out and vote. So they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't.
Right.
All of which to say is California could never be more ready for a rising left to come up to challenge the Democrats.
No, that's true. And I think I definitely think there's a version of this where if the far right really does pull away from, I don't know. It feel weird saying things like the far right pulls away from the Republican Party because the far right is the Republican Party. So I don't know, like those two things can't really be separated that much. But in a scenario, because the other thing that will happen is if there is a push by moderate, no Trump Republicans like Mitt Romney or whatever, then those the establishment, Joe Biden style Democrats are on a steady march to the right as it is all the time. Right. And so if these guys push to the left in an attempt to get away from Trumpism, then they're going to meet in the middle. There's already I challenge you to find me a whole ton of daylight in between the political leanings of Mitt Romney and the political leanings of say Nancy Pelosi or a Joe Biden style Democrat, right? These things are already very, very close. And so I think that
it's the same locally too, a Mike Madrid, who is a part of he's one of the founders of the Lincoln Project. He is no different than your mod Democrat in this town. He's
right. They're the same. They're the same people. And so what that does, though, especially if we've got the far right over here making a bunch of noise, it allows the left to be okay, we'll vote for you, but you have to earn it. You have to give us things that we want. You have to suggest policies that actually uplift the people who live here, or we won't come out. And so that puts then the quote unquote moderate party, which I'm just going to just start using that as the big tent for Republicans and Democrats, because it is the same goddamn thing. But it puts those guys in the position where they're okay, well, we have to court one of these sides, right? And who's it going to be? And I think I don't know. I was about to say that I think the moderates would come to the left first if given the choice between abject racist terrorism and people who want healthcare and housing for people, but I feel maybe I'm having a sweet summer child moment with that.
Yeah.
I feel maybe that's an optimistic take.
I still see I'm optimistic too. Because we've seen wins with the rising left in California, at least already. We have a socialist on Sacramento City Council. We have a socialist on the Los Angeles City Council, right? have another one in the Burbank City Council. We have a man whose parents were radical leftists running the district attorney's office in San Francisco, and he's doing it in ways that would probably make them very proud. So we have inroads. We've made inroads, and we just can keep growing from there.
Right.
I couldn't be. There's a lot of work to do, and we certainly can't like rest on laurels right now because we haven't done anything yet. But like, I'm consistently cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you can be. I think that, like, especially given like if it is true, it's good news no matter what for the GOP to become more and more obsolete as we go forward in California, because that makes it so that like Gavin Newsom is like leading the conservative wing, like the conservative half of the political spectrum in the state, right? Which is good. That means that the left actually has some sway. Like it at least puts California in a position where like we can talk about things like Medicare for all, or like, you know, housing justice, defunding the police, racial justice. We can talk about things like that without having to like really pay that much attention to people who are like, Jesus hates abortions. It's like, no,
Right.
we're not doing that here. Like we're having like a real conversation about this, or at least we can, because there's not all that noise in the background distracting people from having a real conversation. And I think if there is any reason to be optimistic about state politics, it's that I think you're right. And you know, whatever, like if I'm being naive and optimistic, then I'm being naive and optimistic. But I think that like California has the potential to be like a place where we can get some kind of universal healthcare statewide and kind of lead the nation in that regard, you know?
Yeah. I think the general consensus, as you were saying, the Shannon Groves of the GOP in the state and the Jeffrey Perrines, they're showing regular everyday people that this party is out to lunch. They're out to lunch. And so now it's time for the adults to talk. And some things are actually happening. Shannon, can you actually tell us, Skylar, you mentioned housing justice. Shannon, Sacramento recently just passed, it's sort of just like a zoning rule that has some pretty positive implications. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we had, you know, it feels nice to be late January now and feel like we are celebrating some things after a really shitty fucking year. So the council just passed a piece of housing policy, I guess, which allows us to take one parcel of land and build 4 units upon it, which is unheard of for Sacramento, and
for most
really,
of the country.
For most of the country, for sure. I think it is creative land use. It is incredible planning in terms of just how a city that is experiencing a housing deficit, an affordable housing deficit in particular, can respond to that. And, you know, there's a lot of people who might say that what does that actually look like? And the thing is that, you know, it looks like, you know, fourplexes like the ones that we find in Midtown, right? That sort of blend in with the neighborhood. And it's not like all of a sudden you're driving around and you're seeing high rises go up, which I personally don't have anything against high rise housing, and, you know, give me that big city vibe. But I understand that people don't love that. So I think it's a thoughtful plan. And so credit where credit's due.
Can I interject just to ask, like, can you give me the cliff notes on why being able to build fourplexes, just like what the basic idea behind why that's good for housing folks who are you know, like lower income folks, and like why, like what the opposition is to that, like what people who don't want that to happen have to say about it.
Do you mind if I take that?
No, I saw the
Okay.
alert.
So basically, the way that zoning works is, you know, a city says these parcels in this area are all for single family use or single residence zoning. So everything there has to effectively be a single house. I think there's a rule for perhaps an au pair unit, right? So if you have, again, this is all
Right,
very
or like
rich
a
people
mother-in-law
stuff,
or
right?
whatever.
So yeah, you have an in-law that you want to live next door, or you have a nanny that you want to be living on site. You're allowed to have those like little single side living spaces. But this is all sort of, it's basically designed for rich people neighborhoods to look and feel an exact way.
Right.
So
And the with the idea being that like fourplexes are like unsightly, and like people, if people can actually afford to live there, then the neighborhoods won't be nice and swanky anymore.
right. I mean, there's some serious classist and serious racist implications to people fighting against it.
But that is, just so I'm understanding this
Yeah.
correctly, that is traditionally the opposition to this, is like, I don't want poor like POC living in my neighborhood and taking my property rates down or
It's-
whatever. Yeah.
Precisely.
Okay.
It's also, I mean, the other side of that is, or the partner argument to that is that, like, I have a family, I need space. It's this capitalist view of like property equals status, right? So, you know, I mean, I think my house is a good example of this, and you all have been to my house. Like, it is a house
Only outside, by the way.
outside only. You know, there is a house on a big lot. Like, we could fit, if we owned this, we could fit another house out back.
Right.
And that's, you know, that is good land use. It's good planning. It's good city planning, especially when you're talking about a city whose population density is growing at the rate that Sacramento's is. I think the thing that is important to talk about while we also applaud the vote that happened at the council is that we need to remind folks and ourselves that our community, that the council prior to 2021 has been anti-tenant protection and anti-rent control, right? So
Right.
while they pass this land use policy, they have fought tooth and nail against protecting renters and against making sure that people are able to afford the space, the houses, the homes that they live in.
Absolutely.
I think the other part of this is thinking about inclusionary zoning in terms of housing, which would require a certain percentage of the units, the units that are built to be, it would require that they are affordable. And this community
it.
has also not been hospitable toward inclusionary zoning. So those are a couple things that I think what would really make Sacramento I just pronounced the T, which is like, our friend of the show, William Berg, is going to say something about that. Sacramento, if we had this land use policy, if we had rent control and tenant protections in place, and we had inclusionary zoning, then we could really talk about how Sacramento is at the forefront of housing policy, not only in the state, but in the nation. And so I think that while we celebrate this, we also need to continue to push our electeds forward into that space where we continue to fight for rent control, and we continue to fight for those zoning policies that have affordable housing at the core of the work that we're doing, because it's not housing necessarily. Like, the housing shortage is a thing, but the affordable housing shortage is the bigger issue.
Yeah, exactly.
Wasn't it too like didn't tell me if I'm wrong. I saw this is also happening at the same time as Sacramento's rents are rising faster than anywhere else in the country, right?
Anywhere else in the country, right?
Yeah, we lead the entire nation in the fastest rising rent. So like this is obviously a good thing, but it is definitely, like Shannon is saying, like worth noting that like their open hostility towards any kinds of rent control and really any tenant protections in general has worked. Like they are like landlords here are happier than landlords in any other place in the nation.
That's true.
Right.
It's funny. This, of course, policy will have ameliorative effects. Hopefully it will help people, but this is years from now. This will take time before a lot of people are feeling better because of this. Something more immediate would be real rent control here. Wasn't it weird for San Francisco Chronicle wrote a piece on us passing this in Sacramento, which created this big debate in Bay Area housing Twitter, housing Twitter is a place I can very small doses. That's all I'll say. It's
my gosh, it's like terrifying.
Yeah. But it's true. Like this debate it doesn't have to be, San Francisco has stronger culture around supporting rent control than Sacramento does. And it doesn't have to be rent control or multi-unit zoning. It can be yes and it can be both. And a city like Berkeley has both of those, and that is, it just seems like a no-brainer. That's the right way to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we find with this is the ever-present Sacramento versus San Francisco / Bay Area, which is better in terms of housing policy, right? Which I think the argument, I think it's a silly one to have. Don't at me, housing Twitter. Fuck. Because I think the reality is that San Francisco has really led the charge in terms of tenant protections, right? And that tenant protection is a really important piece of any sort of housing policy because it secures people, right? It keeps people in their homes at affordable rates.
I have friends who are in rent control housing in San Francisco who would likely not be there today if not for that.
Sure.
It also has a huge problem with homeowners who don't want to change a goddamn thing out there. So it's
It also prevents homelessness, right? I mean, there's tenant protect. If we are going to talk about communities at the forefront of housing policy, we should list the communities that have robust tenant protections above anything else, because that really is the start. I
agree.
think. And I don't think that this argument that says like who has more points, Sacramento or San Francisco, is necessarily worth having, because I think it's also important to remember that both communities are different. Both cities are different. They are different people work there. They have drawn different kinds of people. The workforce is different. There's any number of things about these two communities that make them different. And when we talk about land use in San Francisco versus land use in Sacramento, the obvious difference is spatial. Whereas, San Francisco has been able to build up San Francisco and Sacramento has been able to build out. I just think, instead, why don't we have a conversation about what Sacramento should aspire to?
Right. I mean, I was surprised, I think, as much as anybody by that argument. And I didn't see much of it. I just saw a thread by friend of the show, Sasha Perigo, who is
I saw
also in housing Twitter. And for a long time, she was a columnist on sort of how to crack the puzzle of the housing crisis out in the Bay Area. And yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you're saying, basically, Shannon. It's every place is different. It really doesn't take much to be in the forefront within this country as far as tenant protections and housing policy goes.
Right.
Yeah.
That bar is
Totally.
pretty low. Yeah.
Yeah.
Case in point, Sacramento is the one of the front runners now as far as zoning goes. But yeah, I mean that I agree with all of that. You know, we were talking about this that will perhaps help people a few years from now. We were talking about renters protections that could help renters now. I think there's another side of this of what can we sort of do to help our neighbors experiencing homelessness in our region now when we do not have affordable housing stock. We do not have shelter beds for them right now. We do not have answers for them when they say, help, I need help.
Yeah.
Something else passed in city council on Tuesday. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh boy, howdy, can I? uh so Safe Ground has been, to anyone who has been plugged into the fight for safe spaces and shelter for people experiencing homelessness. Safe Ground is not it's not an unfamiliar term, but for those who aren't, Safe
Been
Ground
around
is
for years, right?
for years, for many, 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 many years. Since the time that Oprah herself made put Sacramento on the map because of the crisis of homelessness.
Since before the United Nations censured us.
Since before the United Nations thing, yeah.
For turning off our city water supply in certain areas so people experiencing homelessness could not get water. Keep going, sorry.
Oh man, that was the whole thing. It's taken me back many years.
Before this, even.
So Safe Ground is it's a space where people set up tents safely, self-governed. They're clean, there's toilets, there's the whole it's like a community outside, a community of tents outside. This is something that advocates have been fighting for years and years and years, more than a decade. And at the city council meeting, what passed 8-1, and we can talk about the one in a moment. I'm already loving to think about that.
My new favorite guy.
We're coming for you.
This is
The
my
favorite.
yoga buddy.
So Safe Ground, the passed at the city council, which means, what does that look like? It means that folks who own land, that can be vacant property, it can be churches that have vacant lots. If it's a vacant lot, the property owner is welcome to apply for a permit in order to have Safe Ground on their parcel of land. And what Safe Ground would look like, what is required is that there would be security, lighting, garbage pickup, an on-site manager, and secure storage.
So it's a community with an infrastructure.
Right.
Effectively. It's a crude infrastructure, but it's something.
It is, yeah.
It's an
something.
There is
for folks
infrastructure
who are saying, where can I go? What can I do?
Yeah.
Right.
And so in addition to that, the space has to be 500 feet from schools, daycares, or museums, which
why
as somebody
museums?
who
That seems like that's not like, if you were like schools, daycares, and what do you think the third one is? I would not say museums.
No.
I mean, it makes sense if you listen long enough to people argue about why people experiencing homelessness should not have access to things in general.
Sure.
It's not that surprising. It just perpetuates a stereotype that you don't want people to, messy up your spaces, and museums are where high class people go.
That's messed up. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't love that part of it because it perpetuates the stereotype about people experiencing homelessness. And then in addition to that, the city is going to buy 60 tiny homes, which can be put on, safe ground land parcels for use to shelter people. So this is an exciting development in the world of homelessness in Sacramento. I think one of the criticisms that we have around this is that once again the city is saying this ordinance is passed, like, do it, sounds good, but again, it's not the city providing the infrastructure or the monetary support for the infrastructure. It's just like, once again, somebody else go deal with this thing that we have been unable and unwilling to deal with for many, many, many years.
Right.
And actually, Mai Vang and Katie Valenzuela, two councilwomen, brought up the new ones brought up the difficulty in making something like this happen without financial support from the city. So that's like appreciated that there are electeds sitting up on the dais saying, like, but we should maybe think about, this other part of it. So it did pass 8-1, and Skylar's yoga buddy, District 2 zone, Sean Laloe,
One too many L's. There you go. Laloe.
said no, thank you.
He needs to think about it.
He needs to think about it a little more. He's gonna workshop it. He's gonna workshop it in his mind.
He's gonna whiteboard it.
He's gonna put up some sticky notes. He's really gonna sit around and think about it, because his thing was District 2. There is just so much homelessness as it is, and I just don't know if we can take more.
I think it's a pretty good move as like a new city council member to like immediately come out and be the lone dissenting voice and like providing places for like unhoused folks to be safe.
Who later in the meeting will equate Antifa with Proud Boys.
Yeah.
So this guy's a real class act.
Yeah. He's cool,
Sean,
man. I'm with
baby.
this guy. Yeah.
Sean baby.
Love you, Sean. We're watching you.
Come on out of your Granite Bay house. Let's teach you a few things.
We love
This
to think
guy.
about you.
I can't wait to see what he does next.
I mean, as long as he's not dragged out of that building in 6 months in handcuffs, I think there's
Hey-o.
many more stories to go with this guy.
It's astounding to me that it's not fucking astounding to me. It's par for the goddamn course that council person would sit right down and not be willing to immediately vote for something that is like sure to help people with like all of the data in front of them. Like in 2019, the Sacramento County like point in time count showed us that over 5,000 people in Sacramento are experiencing homelessness on any given night. And over 3,500 of those people are experiencing unsheltered homelessness. That was a 19% increase in homelessness from the 2017 point in time count. That count showed that 93% of those people experiencing homelessness were from Sacramento.
Right.
So these are folks from our community, which, by the way, that's bullshit. I hate when it's like we want to help people if they're from Sacramento only, but they're people, so
they're human beings.
Right. But sometimes people need data in order to compel them to have a feeling of helping people.
Yeah.
So there's the fucking data. And this year, I would suspect if COVID was not happening, the point in time count would be happening this week on Thursday, or Wednesday,
tomorrow.
and Thursday, tomorrow, Tuesday. Sorry,
today, listeners.
When you're listening to this, it will be happening in hours.
Yesterday.
And I suspect that what we would find is yet another increase in people experiencing homelessness.
There's no question. Yeah. And
so, like,
not only that, it's on Monday night, the low is 27 degrees. It's going to be hard to find folks, and it would still dwarf what they found in 2019. We're running a little short on time, so we got to wrap this up a little bit. But can I just say that I know there are only two people, Katie Valenzuela and Mai Vang, up on city council, up on that dais. And you need 5 votes to pass anything. They always say, I know how to count to 5 on city council. But I don't think it can be understated the energy and the culture change that they've brought to that city council already.
100%.
It's such a good start. I mean, it's obviously it's not the end of Sacramento's problems with its city officials, but it is a good movement in the right direction for sure.
Yeah. And even if friend of the show, Master of Crows, Daryl Steinberg, is taking credit in the Chronicle for things like the zoning change, I just don't think it can be understated what Katie and Mai are doing already, and it's refreshing to see.
Yeah, and to that end, if you know anybody who actually lives in District 2, who like you think would be who you would like to see on city council, maybe start thinking about it, because there's like a non-zero chance that we're looking at a special election at some point in District 2.
Bring that special election.
It's a pretty perfect take there, Skylar.
You know, Dave, speaking of perfect takes,
here we go.
I've heard tell that there exists a place online that I can access with my computer or my mobile device, where I can find basically an inexhaustive library of perfect takes consolidated down into a bite-sized package that I would love to bite and consume. If the rumors are true and this mythical place does actually exist, can you point me at it and tell me how to get there?
Absolutely. I'm so glad you asked. And I think a lot of people would agree with you that there's nothing better than consuming small packages.
Yeah, I love it. I love to think about it.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it right now.
Loving it.
This is why they don't let me in FedEx anymore.
Oh my God.
But there's one other place that's not FedEx, where these small packages filled to the brim.
They really shine.
Shining, just there's a
nice shiny
sunlight.
package.
Where's Flo?
We're getting off the
Baby, come back.
These perfect take, shiny, sheeny packages that are delectable exist in a little corner of the internet called voicesrivercity.com. We've outdone ourselves with this one.
Not today.
Best segue ever.
We've been doing news there, arts coverage since 2017. Man, almost 4 years now. We've also done the Sac Follows the Money project, which has been a very fun and in my opinion, successful look at where the bastards are sending their money to which politicians in our region. And I think that it has played a small role in getting the baddies out and putting some goodies in. And so I'd recommend checking that out. That's not going anywhere anytime soon. Our current iteration of Voices is mainly focused on the podcast. We have folks on to talk about their mutual aid work. We have folks in the fight for Black liberation. We've got the street medical team that's just young doctors or future doctors coming out to help people experiencing homelessness through the pandemic when our state refuses to. We have a lot of people that just want to do good in this town and give back and fight back. And I think that's been a real joy to do. I also want to note Shannon has been a host for almost exactly a year now. I think it's probably a year and a few days. So
that
happy anniversary to
a whole
Shannon.
year of perfect takes. Thank you, Shannon.
Yeah, you know what? You're welcome.
Very humble woman. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna ask because I'm a fan of the podcast and I love to listen every Tuesday. My episode shows up in my feed, and I give it a listen. And I listen to it, and I always enjoy it. I always like it. I love to listen to the perfect takes, but then I get sad because I have to wait a whole week before I get more perfect takes. And I don't know. I was wanting, like, is there any way that I could perhaps double the amount of perfect takes that I can consume every week? And if so, where would I go and how would I do it?
I'm glad you said double, because currently FDA recommends that you not do 3 hours or 4 hours a week of perfect takes. 2 hours is really the recommended.
That's the sweet spot. Yeah, no, that's what I need. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So so obviously we have the free episodes that come out every Tuesday. But if you want to help support us, you can get for as low as $5 a month an extra episode every Friday in your inbox, in your shiny inbox.
Right in your feed.
Right in your feed.
Right in your feed.
That's another hour of perfect takes just for you. And
that's incredible. For only and you're not talking $5 an episode. You're talking $5 for the whole month.
Yeah, it's basically a buck and a quarter
that's
per
nothing.
Extra episode. It's a steal. It is. We should be suing all of our patrons right now, but we won't, because we love them.
We should bring lawsuits against all of our patrons.
The people giving us money. Yeah.
Litigate.
Mm-hmm.
Litigate.
And yeah, we've got a store. That's another way to support us. voicesrivercity.com/shop, I believe. Yes.
Yep.
You can get t-shirts, you can get coffee mugs, you can get, and think about this, White Claw koozies.
Fantastic.
There's just some amazing things there.
There was some talk going around about Voices River City branded laser pointers, right?
This one's still in the works.
Yes, please.
But I know a number of our listeners would like them, and we know exactly the ones to get, so we'll keep you posted there. And we're on first of all, we're also on the radio. You can listen to this episode Tuesdays at 5 p.m. on 103.1 KUTZ in downtown Sacramento. You can hear another run of this episode if you missed it, on your way home from work Tuesday. On your way into work Wednesday morning, you can listen at 8 a.m. at 103.1 KUTZ. The Cuds. And this is us. This is us doing our thing, giving you perfect hot socialist takes, and we're excited to do it. We're excited to be a part of this and to grow this. We're on social, Facebook Voices River City, Twitter and Instagram at Voices River City. We are on YouTube. You can watch our little faces, Voices River City. Give us a little like and smash that blarm button in all of your podcast apps. Maybe give a little review. That always helps people find us. Anything else?
Well, I mean, if I wanted to just read about your perfect takes personally, removed from the show, not on behalf of Voices, where could I find those?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, you can find all of my perfect takes about getting that stimmy from Prezi Joe.
OMG.
I am on Twitter at Kempa. Why are you Kempa?
You can find me at Guillotine for You. That's Guillotine, the number 4, YOU.
I'm at Shan N.D. Stevens.
If you want to find Flo, you can find her at Flo Jean. That's FLOJAU, the letter N, E.
Oh, God.
The rest of those weren't letters.
No, just the N.
All right, guys. Well, that is the show for today. Thank you again for listening. We want you to know that we love all of you very much, and we want you to stay safe.
Stay sane.
Stay healthy.
And stay the fuck away from me.
We out.
Unless you got a package.
A little
shiny
one,
package.
a little spicy one.
Or a
Shiny
coupon code for taints.
Text taint to 31330
Taint me, baby.
to learn more about taints. Oh, that was good. We're going to come in at like probably 57.
Something like that.